Okay, so this is the uh, curriculum I've come up with that we will be using for this training. Please kindly confirm if you can see my screen. All right,
Yes, I
sir.
can see.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So for today is day one. So we'll be looking at understanding design basics. So basically, we'll be looking at design principles. This will help us in order to create professional designs, and we won't be having issues with how to position our elements. So we'll be looking fully into design principles today. Then when next we meet, we will learn about typography, that's working with text. So how do we combine text together so that it will communicate the message we want to communicate? Then we learn about color, that is basically color theory. Then how do we work with layers in Canva? Every design tool has what we call layers. Layers is just how you arrange your elements so that you will be able to manage the editing very well. So we will look into those three things in our next class. Then the following class will be the practical. And that's when we start the practical class. So the first two classes are theoretical based, although I will be showing some practical things, but basically they are more of theory, and they are very important because the knowledge of these first 2 days will affect your output. It will affect the designs you create, the presentation you are creating at the end of the day. So for day 3 and day 4, we will do more of practical. That is when we will do the presentation designs in full for day 3 and day 4. And then day 5 will be an interactive session where I will take our questions, look into areas where we are having issues or challenges, then we are going to solve them together. So at the end of each class, I'm going to update this curriculum. I will add the recording links to them so that you can go back and check the recording after the class. So tonight we will be looking at understanding design basics, and that is more of design principles. So I have a slide I'll be using for that. It's not really a serious slide, but just to guide what I will be discussing with us. And I've also opened Canva. So I will, in case you have not signed up for Canva, but I believe you must have done that. So just open Canva on once. I'll be switching between the Canva screen and the PowerPoint and the slide that I have here so that I can explain what we have for today. So principles of design. If you, for people who cook food a lot, when you are in the kitchen and you want to prepare a food, let's say you want to prepare rice, you will gather some ingredients that you want in design. When you have all the elements of design on ground, you have your pictures, you have your shapes, your lines, your fonts, all these things. For you to be able to bring them together to form a well articulated design, you need to understand the principles of design. Same way, for you to be able to mix your food ingredients together in order to make a good and well presentable food, you need the recipe. So the principle of design is what guides, or they are the rules that guides or that informs how we combine our design elements. So the first principle of design I want to talk about is what we call balance. Balance. And I will just use this image to my right to explain it. Okay. So when we talk about balance in design, we are actually talking about visual weight. Visual weight. So what do we mean by visual weight? Visual weight is just when you look at a design, psychologically, the weight you feel with your eye, how you see the design. If to the left you are having more content, or to the right you're having less content. So when the left and the right, or the top and the lower part of the design canvas, that is the area where you have your design, visually, when you are seeing it, the kind of impression is passing to you psychologically. That's what we call the weight. So there are two ways we can maintain balance in our design. We can have symmetrical balance, and we can have asymmetrical balance. So if you look at the image you have to your right, we have the symmetrical one. The symmetrical one here, you have the image at the top and you have text under it. To the left, same way to the right, you have the image at the top and you have text under it. So the same content you have on the left is the same content you have on the right. That makes it symmetrical. But when you look at asymmetrical, the content, the element you have at the left is not the same element you have at the right, but yet they look balanced. Why? To the top left side, you have a content, and the lower right hand side, you have a content. Same thing, the top right hand corner side, there is no content there, just an empty space. And the lower left hand side, you have an empty space. Looking at it, the two elements are, it's communicating a kind of balance. So when you look at it diagonally, there is a sense of balance in it. That's what we call asymmetrical balance. So visually, the weights still look balanced, even though it's not the same kind of elements. Why symmetrical balance talks about having the same kind of element to your left and the same element to your right. These are the things we pay attention to when we are designing. Because when you design a slide, or you any kind of design you do, and when people take a look at the design and they notice that what you have on the left is not having a kind of balance with what you have on the right, it passes a sense of disorderliness, or something that doesn't communicate the message perfectly to the audience, to the reader. So we do, can easily see when you see a house and you look at how the windows are laid out, you can see elements of balance in it. Even in when you see a car, you will see that the tire by the left is balancing with the tire by the right. When you don't have good balance on your car, then you have to go for wheel balancing. So all those things are our real life experience. And that is the same way it works in design. Our brain has been programmed to just love balance. Any design that doesn't communicate balance, easily the audience will notice it. So that's what we call balance in design. Combining your elements in such a way that you have the right visual weight, almost the same visual weight, both either to the left and right, or upper side and the lower side. Let me show you a design, a real life design, in order to explain this. Okay, so I'm going to open a design now, and I will just use that to explain what we mean by balance. Okay, good. So I was asking that, did you get the explanation I was trying to make concerning balance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to open a design here to just show us balance in reality now. But it's taking,
So that's what I used to say about my fear with Canvas presenting online when the network is not good.
it will work. Actually, it's because of the bad network that we are experiencing at
Yeah.
this moment. Normally, it should not, it doesn't take ages like this. But it's okay. Let me proceed. Let me allow it to be opening in the background while I proceed with the class. Okay. So I've talked about balance, which is visual weight. Now, the next principle I want to introduce us to is what we call unity. So unity in the principles of design is just the harmony produced by all the elements in a design piece. So just think about unity as ensuring that all the elements you have in your design are communicating together and they are well integrated. So the good rule, so let me take this again because I don't even know when the network went off. So I was saying that, for instance, using similar colors that match and integrate elements organically makes it appear as if they belong together and not just put on a page. So when we get to color theory, when we get to typography, we will learn more about how we use many of these elements, how we use them together in order to form what we call unity. Designs must not be created in such a way that people will easily find out from your design that these things are not working together. The goal is to ensure that every element you have are communicating together. Every element you have are well integrated together. That is the goal. So now I have been able to load that design that I was showing to us. So now if you look at this title page, you will notice I have the text to the left and I have an image to the right. Even though we don't have the same elements, but yet I'm trying to communicate a sense of balance because I I was using the image that I have to the right to balance the content I have to the left. Imagine if I have my text up and I move this up and I try to still find a space to put the image somewhere here and I leave this place blank. What I've just done is that I have not been able to communicate balance very well because I have left everything on this left hand side empty and I now decide to put all the elements to one side and make it look so dense. Now, there are times when you might want to do something like this, but that is only when you are dealing with ordinary text. But when you have other elements in your design, where you have text, you have images, it is good that you make use of balance rather than just putting everything to one side. That makes your design to look imbalanced. So that's just a little explanation using this design now. Then unity. Let's continue with our unity. So the unity in this design here talks about how I was able to use my font. So the font I use for the main text, that is the title text, is not too far from the font I used for the description of the person that is presenting. So that is talking about unity. Imagine if I use a font like maybe a calligraphy font, unless I'm trying to communicate to maybe we will still learn about that also under typography. If I'm communicating to younger audience, some like kids, so I can play with fonts anyhow. But when you are doing formal presentation, communicating to adults, you don't want to use something like you don't want to do something like that so that you won't be tampering with their psychological state of mind. So you want to use fonts that are similar to each other and that are close to each other. And that's unity. That's the essence of unity. Okay, so let me proceed to the next one by showing us some examples. So if you look at the design by the design by the left is showing good sense of unity. But the design by the right is not showing good sense of unity. Even though this is more or less like a magazine design. You know, in magazine design, they want to try and complicate things. They want to innovate, come up with some creative layout. So magazine layouts can be very funny, but this is not always acceptable, especially in presentation design or large screen designs. So when you are doing large screen design, you want to go for something simple and easy to understand. Something like what you have on the left. So that's the essence of unity. So in presentation design, we go more with simplicity than complexity. But in all these print designs, like magazine designs, they like complex things. Let's go to the next one, which is a very important principle, and that is contrast. Contrast. Contrast is something we all get to use in our day-to-day life, especially when you are like the whole world is created with contrast in mind. In fact, anywhere you get to, you see contrast. For instance, we have light, we have day and night, that's contrast. We have light and darkness, that's contrast. We have black and white, that's contrast. So contrast refers to the level of difference between design elements in order to create visual hierarchies. So contrast is more about word and opposite. Although when you are achieving contrast, you are not trying to create a riot or something we call color riot. You are not trying to create something like that. So when you are engaging with contrast, you are still trying to achieve what we call harmony. Okay, so you are still trying to achieve what we call unity, but yet contrast is very important. And this is a rule that cannot be broken, especially when you are dealing with colors. The easiest way to understand color combination is to understand contrast. So when you have a lighter value of a color as your background, so for instance, the background for my slide is white. The normal thing to do using the principle of contrast is to use a color that has a darker value as my foreground. So if my background, like this slide background now, is white, then my foreground should be of a darker value. So it can be black, it can be brown, it can be red, it can be green, any color that is darker in value. But imagine if I decide to use yellow on this white. Yellow is of a lighter value. So yellow will not come out good on this kind of design background because that is poor contrast. So contrast refers to the level of difference between design elements. And we also use contrast when we talk about sizes. For instance, if you look at my slide now, the font with the biggest size is the title, contrast, whereas my body text are of smaller sizes. Why? Because the most important statement or the most important thing I'm communicating on that slide is the contrast. I want people to see contrast as soon as they see this particular page of the slide. Whereas the body text are also important, but they are not given the same font size just to communicate contrast. So we use contrast to communicate hierarchy. We use it to communicate differences. We use it to communicate weight. So there are some times when you want to use a bigger size of something and a smaller size of a particular element just to show that there is a difference in their weight. So please, do you understand what I'm just trying to explain about contrast? Any question, or let me get a
Yeah,
feedback? Do we understand from that
yeah,
sense?
yeah. My question is on the color contrast.
Okay, sir.
So how do you pick two different colors? For example, can I go with blue and brown, red and yellow? How do you know which one to put together, the colors? Or are we going to cover that in color theory?
All right, sir. Okay. So actually, we will learn that in color theory. We learn how do you combine red with another color? How do you combine blue with another color? So color theory will show us some principles. So we have principles of color combinations. So that's where we are going to learn about triadic. We learn complementary colors. We learn triadic colors. We learn asymmetric. We have a lot of them, like plenty. But I will show us a tool that we can easily use to do that. But even if you don't understand those color theory, to answer your question straight, what you can do is, let me open Canva and just, okay, Iniolua, I will give you opportunity. Let me just finish answering this question. So let me use this design now to just demonstrate something you can do. Let's assume you don't even understand color theory. So what you can do is, if I'm going to create a new page now for this particular design.
Sorry, we
Let me
can't see
just
your
get a new
Canva
page. So I'm
page.
duplicating this.
We can't see your
What do you
Canva
say?
page. We can't see your
All right.
Canva
Okay.
page. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so this is a new page I just created on this design. What I did was to just click this three line here and then click on add page. So when you click on add page, it opens a new page for me. So now let's assume I want to see how do I combine red with another color. So what I will do is, I'm assuming now that I don't understand color theory, and I just want to apply a contrast. Red, let me pick red. Let me use the normal red. Here's red here. Good, this is red. So I'm just assuming now, this is assumption. So if my background is red, to achieve contrast, red is a darker value color. Red is a color that is not a light valued color. So it's not light in nature, it's dark. So what I will now do is, if I want to combine this red with blue, so that means maybe something like my text. If my text is blue, so let me add a text box, and let me just type something. This is, if I put black on red, it won't be a good color combination because both of them are of darker colors. So what I will do is, I will find a lighter value color to place on my red, and I want to use blue, right? So I will go to my color and I will pick blue color. This blue color on this red is not showing very well, as you can see it. So I will make this blue to be a lighter value of blue. So I will come to we call this thing your color palette mixture, your color mixture. So you can use it to mix color. Then I will drag this blue. I will drag it up. When you go up, you are increasing you are toning down a color using this particular color palette. You are toning up a color. That is, you are adding white to a color. Then when you go down, you are getting a shade of that color. So you are adding black to it. So I will go up, move left. When you move to the left, what you are doing is that you want the white to, you want the color to have more white content. When you go up, you want the color to become lighter. When you go down, you want the color to become darker. When you go to the left, you want the color to be tending towards white. Okay, so now when I go up now, I notice that I have made the color to be lighter. So I now have a lighter value of blue. With this, I can move on with my design because this is of a lighter color and this is of a darker color. So using contrast alone, I've been able to combine red with what? With blue. Another thing I can do is if I notice that the text is still not showing well, I can make this background, this red background, I can make it more darker. So I can come down. But the more you come down, you will notice that it's affecting foreground also. It's affecting what you can see with your eye. So the darker it becomes, then the lighter your foreground will now need to become. Because if your foreground is not becoming lighter, it will be difficult to read. So I'm just using contrast here now, not using any principle of color combination, because I don't want us to go into color combination yet. So, but at least you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to make the background to be darker, where I just to get an opposite of one for the other. I don't know if you understand that.
Yeah, that really helps. I think the color theory will also help because the question
Yes.
will now be, you can put yellow on red and it will using this principle, but does it make sense?
Beautiful. That is what color theory will now teach us.
Okay, that's fine.
So that is what we learn under color theory. Thank you. Inolua, you raised your hand the other time.
Yeah, so if you go back to the first slide on this
Particular
presentation now.
presentation.
Yeah, this
Okay.
particular one, the one where you used to explain balance.
Okay. This one.
So yeah, I'm guessing that initially when I first saw this, I thought it was not balanced because I
Okay.
thought like there are lots of white space between the picture and the text. So, but
Okay.
I know that you also, I just want you to like maybe just explain briefly. So, if you say this one is balanced, then I would think maybe it is the asymmetric balance, right? Because
Okay. Yes.
I felt the picture is a bit small and there
Okay.
are white text that could it have been enlarged so that everything we I don't know.
Yes,
Maybe
that's
that
a
I
might
very
think
good.
I'm thinking maybe it's a combination of contrast and which other one did you talk about? Smaller size and bigger
be
size.
nice contrast.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe the text has more priority than the picture. That's my understanding from what you have explained. Maybe the two characteristics together, but you are the professional.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, I think you sincerely you did very well. The line of thought is very correct. So what was actually going on here is that I've not reached a particular principle. There is a principle we call white space. So white space is all about trying to ensure your design, you don't use the whole space for your design. Your element must not, is a rule, your element must not cover the whole design. Why? You are doing this so that you can direct the eye of the reader. So you will remember while we were in primary school when we are learning to write, they will always tell us write within the margin. So you must put a margin to the left and there must still be a kind of margin to the right, margin at the top, something like that. All those things are white space. They help you to direct the eye of the reader. So what was going on here, or what is going on here, is that all these spaces you are seeing here, they are white space. White space does not necessarily have to be white. It can be any color, but they are just empty spaces. So these empty spaces give breathing space to your elements and make it easier for the reader to move their eye. So when you see this image, the first point of connection to this design is the text, food, nutrition, and meal preparation. Then the next point you are moving your eye to is the image. Then you come back to by something, something, something. So what I'm trying to communicate is that white balance. Whereas I'm also trying to communicate asymmetric balance. Asymmetric balance is I have text on the left and I have image on the right. They are not the same kind of element, but yet I'm trying to show a kind of balance with it. Is the image small or can it be bigger? Now, if I make this image to be bigger, just see what will happen now. If I increase the size of the image and I make it to cover a good amount of space. So what is going to happen here is that I will be losing the balance I want to achieve asymmetrically, because now what is going on is that I have covered, I have used the image to cover a good amount of percentage of the space to the right, whereas my text and my text size, my text area is not doing that. So the only thing I can do, the only thing I can do to adjust to this particular height I have reached now with the image is to move this up a little and then bring this down a little so that at least I can have something close. Because when you are thinking of balance, you're also thinking of alignment, which we also talk about when we are proceeding. So when we are thinking of balance, you are looking at alignment. Is your image at the top? How close is it to the line at the top? You can see some guides here. So if the image, if the text is starting at this point and my image is reaching this point, then I should be careful with. Good, thank you. Unconsciously, your eye begin to focus. Thank you, sir. And that is
Yeah.
what happens because I have increased the size of the image. So I must be very careful with something like that because the reader or the people I'm communicating to is not necessarily the image that is most important, unless if it is the image that is most important, then that will be a good justification to increase the size of the image. But if the image is not the most important thing, or for the people I'm presenting to, I just want to use the image to support what I have written as a text, then I should be very careful with the size of the image. Thank you so much for that. I really like the
Okay. Thank
questions.
you.
Yes. Okay, so
Another question about the slide. Why the
okay,
difference in the color of the text?
beautiful. Beautiful. That's a great question. So what the meaning the reason for this is just what we call what's the right word now?
Aesthetics.
Um, yes, it's part of the aesthetics, but it's basically to draw more attention. So I'm trying to find a way to tell them that this slide, this presentation is more of nutrition than just meal preparation. So the person that is presenting this slide is actually a nutritionist, and the slide is actually to teach more about nutrition, even though they will also learn about meal preparation. So I have to use that color separation just to tell them that we are talking about two things in this slide. And as far as I am concerned, the green being that green color is actually their brand color, whereas the black is just a generic color. Black has a lot to do with anything that has to do with food, health, and so on, so on. So I have to use green for the most important content, which is the nutrition, and use black. So that's the essence of the separation, just to show that I'm drawing more attention to nutrition than meal preparation.
And the green vegetables also complements the food nutrition as well. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
beautiful.
yes, yes. You are right.
Let's
So
go
when
on.
you okay, so choice of pictures, choice of images are also everything is there intentionally. That's one thing about design, and that's what I was trying to explain under unity. Intentionality. Every element must be there for a reason. Nothing should be on your design without a reason. So if they don't have to be
Mm.
there, then you can remove it. Then this is examples of good and bad contrast. So you can see the good contrast, a lighter value of green on top of a darker background, which is black. Then you can see this black and red, a darker value of red on top of a black background. So to make this to be a good contrast, what you can do is to go for a lighter value of red. So you go for a red color that is light so that it can come out good on the background. So now let's talk about emphasis. Good emphasis. That is the right word I was looking for that time. So that's the using that green text color, I was trying to communicate emphasis. So
Mm.
emphasis is a strategy to get the viewer's attention to a specific design element. So this can be in any form, a button, a website, or an image. So the purpose is to create something that will stand out from the rest of the page. So that put change the color of something. All those things are to communicate emphasis. We use emphasis a lot in our normal writing. When you are writing a project, you will bold some text, you will not bold some text. All those things are just emphasis. So emphasis are things we do regularly because we can't give the same level of importance to things. Let me share this also. This is the inside of the slide now. If you look at this slide, you will notice that I put more emphasis on the topic. That one is a normal thing. But here you can see these icons. I intentionally used a colored icon. It was intentional. Why? Because I want them to know that I have some items, some list items on the slide. And I don't want it to get lost in them looking at the picture. Or don't forget, because I can't use than just like it can compete with the title, but yet the lists are very important. So how do I draw attention to the list? So I have to use a colored icon. That's emphasis. So when you see the slide, you will know that okay, there are some things here that needs to be read. Imagine if I use the same color, if I did not change the color of if I use the same gray color that I use for the text, it can easily get the list you can easily just feel like, okay, let's just be through and move on. So I have to change the color of the list icon just to draw emphasis to those lists. That's emphasis. So emphasis talks about drawing your reader's attention to something. Let's proceed. Any question with that?
That's clear. Thank you.
Any question? Okay, good. So let's see this. Okay. So if you look at the design by the right, you can see that the emphasis is on the baby chicken or baby chicks. I don't know. So, and it looks as if it has a higher
It's
height than the man.
the man.
But
Mm.
that is almost impossible in real life. But we are just trying to communicate a kind of, maybe the man is trying to get wisdom from the chick. I don't know. But if you look at the design on the left, you find it difficult to understand what is going on because the designer is not really drawing too much emphasis to anything. But you can
Mm.
still see a lot of things on going. The design is very busy. You have the bed, you have the palm tree growing inside the man's head. Maybe you want to talk about palm tree growing everywhere. I don't know. But yeah, you can easily see what the designer is trying to emphasize. Designer want to emphasize the chicken. So that's emphasis. Now let's talk about repetition. This is very important, especially when you want people to you want to keep something in their mind throughout the presentation. So you can use repetition to do that. So repetition is a principle we use a lot in design. If you are conversant with all these big brands like Nike, Adidas, Coca-Cola, MTN, and so on, you will notice that every time you see a Coca-Cola advert, some people are always smiling, they are happy. You will see the red color, you will see the popping of the Coke and all those things. They repeat that in all their advertisements. Why? They want to build that mindset for everybody. They want everybody to relate Coca-Cola with happiness, with joy. Whereas people still use Coca-Cola when they are doing funeral service, but they will never show you Coca-Cola being used in a funeral service. So that's the essence of repetition. Repetition is basically to communicate something over and over so that that thing can remain in the mind of your listener. So using repeated elements on a layout can be pleasing to the viewer. Repetition is repeating a single element throughout the design. So one thing I have kept constant in this slide design is the color. So I have ensured that the color for my title remains the same. I have ensured that my logo remains at the top right hand corner throughout. I have ensured that the name of the are to my right hand side throughout the design. That's repetition. So it makes it easy, especially when you are communicating to adult. Adult doesn't have much time to think. So they don't want to be thinking of too many things. Their brain is one direction at too many times. Sorry for using that word, but that's one thing I found out about adults. Or I remember there was a so it's just all these academic slides. I now use my own what do we call it now? My own architectural mindset and graphic mindset to do the design. As soon as I showed it to the man said, "Oh, beautiful, wow, but you can't use this for academic purpose." Because I have a lot of I have a lot of visual things, visual elements, and all these things going on in the slide. So the man said he would have loved this if this is just normal presentation, just to communicate an idea to people. But this is an academic work. you too many things on your slide. So you have to be direct, you have to do more with text and something like that. So I have to come back again, work more on the layout, make it simple, make it direct, make it something they can easily grab what is there. To keep people on your design, it helps you to be able to communicate what you want to communicate with ease and with little friction. Okay, so that is constant.
Hello.
But
Okay, we lost you.
hello.
We lost you for some seconds.
Oh, okay. But you can hear me now, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sir. So you raised your hand, sir. You want to say something?
Yes. I wanted to contrast your slide with most of the template that I've just seen on Canva. And I noticed that
Okay.
most of the template on Canva has blue background, black, mostly blue, dark blue background. And the text, you find it quite difficult to
read.
read for me, but it looks good. It looks more like a business presentation pitch stuff, but when you want to present things that you're doing now that is educational, you use
Mhm.
this. Is this a deliberate thing? The one they have on Canva, are they not things that you will recommend, or what? I just want you to speak to that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Actually, this was deliberate, and the reason for that is when you know your audience and you know what they are used to, you have to try to get closer to that. So I know this is basically an educational slide. Most people are used to whiteboard. So when they are learning something, they in their mind, they always see it on whiteboard. So I have to just stay with a they can easily connect being an educational slide. But most of Canva templates are created for business people, are created for graphics or business presentation. But thank God, one thing about it is we can modify it, we can edit it. So depending on what you want to use the slide for, they also have some educational slides. They have slides that are created. We will look into that later. Canva templates are grouped. They are grouped based on what you want to use them for. So you will see some slides also that works for education very well. You will see some slides that work for academic, all these PhD theses, master, all those theses of a thing. You will see some slides that work for that also. So I did this intentionally. I want it to be a white background because of what I know people are used to. That's it. It's intentional. Then readability is part of what we are going to learn. You can adjust your color or your text so that you can achieve readability. So I believe I've answered that question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So that's repetition. Let's look at both the title. The only font that is different here is the logo. Okay, and to the left, you will see this wave form. This wave is just a kind of repetition, waveforms. So you can use color to achieve repetition. That's it. You can use color to achieve repetition. You can use fonts to achieve repetition. You can use shapes to achieve repetition. You can see the shape, this L shape at the edge of the design. All these things are repetition. They are things that makes your designs to look great. Now let's
Sorry,
talk about,
before you move on,
all
sorry.
right.
That last picture, can we say that one is balanced? Because the black
Yes, because
space
there is
beside the
this
picture
empty
of
here. Beautiful. I love that. So this particular design now, there is imbalance here. That's just the truth. You are correct.
okay,
So this is not balanced because this place is too empty, like too empty. And you don't want to
okay.
do something like this. But this design is for creatives. So sometimes some creatives, when you are doing designs for creatives, you want to go outside the box and do some things that are not normally acceptable. You get.
Mm,
So between them, they will just feel like, okay, let's move on with this. But it might not be acceptable every time. Do you get it? So there are
yeah,
always times when we do things just for doing sake, not necessarily because it is acceptable. So
yeah.
you are right. I'm happy you are seeing those things now. It shows you understand balance. So let's look about pattern. In principles of design, a pattern is the repetition of more than one design element. So why repetition
Mm,
focuses on a single element? Okay, so I was trying to explain pattern. Please, can you hear me?
yeah.
All right, thank you. So patterns are just mostly used in creating backgrounds. And sometimes we don't really pay more attention to it. We don't use it most times because not all slides allows for patterns because patterns sometimes, if you don't use them very well, they can make your design to be too busy. So most times when you use pattern in slides, you have to reduce you have to reduce the transparency or the opacity now. So you reduce the opacity so that they will flush into the background. They will not really be competing with anything you are putting on your background. But actually, we use patterns to communicate repetition also. We use it to communicate something that people can have. Of design is the sense of unity created when all the elements in a composition relate well with each other. So let me give us an example. Imagine having an image of a house and an image of a human being beside each other in a design. And the house, the height of the house image is lower than the height of the image for the human being. You will notice that that is bad proportion, because in real life, human being cannot be taller than a house. Like, it's not possible. Unless something is wrong somewhere. Or probably that is the major, maybe that is what you want to communicate with that design. You want to show that human being is bigger than a house. Maybe that design is trying to communicate that kind of message. Or maybe you are trying to say something like, be in charge of your home. You now put the image of the man to be taller than the house. So something like that. But you know that in real life, that is not correct. Same thing with the image you have here, the tree and the house. Most times, trees
Yeah.
are taller than the house. Most times. So unless you have all these shrubs, but real tree are taller than a house. So that's proportion. That's what we call proportion. Just like the bed and the man in the earlier slide. Thank you, sir. So that is not something that happens normally, or although we are just trying to use that to communicate a kind of message. So proportion is that principle that says that your design must follow what people knows as reality. And you do this a lot when you are communicating with images, when you are trying to combine images in your design. Let me see if I can. I'm going to share a design now and use that to explain proportion very well. Coming, let me go back to my own. Let me just click on a design. Okay. I want to see if I can find a design that we have to. Okay, let me use this now. I think I can do something with this. Okay. Just give it some seconds to load. As soon as it's load, I will just use it to explain proportion. Okay. Almost. So we are almost through for tonight. After proportion, I think that's all. That's the last thing. Proportion. So we'll just revise everything. Oh, this should load now. Don't have this time. Okay, good. We have it now. So this is a design. Now, let me explain proportion. This image now, the person inside this image is actually sitting down. So imagine if I have this image and I reduce the size of the image, just see what is going on here. And I have the image like this. How does this look?
Weird.
It looks weird. That's just it. Because this is bad proportion. This person is sitting down. You don't even have the full leg, so it's not touching any. It's just like the image is floating. Like, what's going on? To your mind, you'll be feeling like, no, something is not correct, something is not right. So what proportion demands is that I have to increase the size of the image and bring it down a little. so that at least it will look indeed that the person is sitting down. So a portrait may work better. Yes, sir, you are correct. So we try to, and this is the only image the person gave me. In fact, this image gave me a lot of trouble, a lot of issues, because I have to start looking for a way to add some blacks to cover up. I don't want the chair to show too much, things like that, because I couldn't get a portrait. So proportion is key when you are designing. Like this image also now, this gives me more opportunity, more freedom, because it's more or less like I'm seeing the person is standing. So if I want to communicate bad proportion now, I now reduce this image. Maybe I reduce the size of the image and now bring it down. Like, let's say, because I don't have the other part of this is not correct. This is bad proportion because the image is looking lost in the design. So you have to.
You major in the minor now.
That's it. So that is proportion. Proportion. So proportion is just it's that in our design. We should know what to be big, what should be small, what should, like the logo now. I cannot make this logo now to be very big. Like, it doesn't make sense. How will a logo be very big in a design? It's bad proportion. So I have to make it smaller, because logo only have to be there. It doesn't have to be too pronounced. It should be in the design, but it should not be too pronounced. So that's proportion. Then the birthday, the most important person is celebrating birthday. So I have to go for a font that communicates that, and joy, playful, things like that, and is big. I have to increase the size. So that's proportion. Okay. And that's what we have for us tonight. We've looked at, let me do quick revision while I will take our questions and contributions. So we looked at proportion, we've looked at pattern, we've looked at repetition, as also, and we've looked at emphasis, contrast, and then unity, and the last one was balance. So there are still some principles of design that I did not even cover here. We have what we call your white space. So white space talks about empty space. So those empty areas that you leave behind without putting any element in them, in order to give your element breathing space. That's number one. Number two, in order to direct the eye of your reader. So you don't want everywhere to be occupied, so that they will know what to focus on. So that's another principle, white space. So some people call it white balance, something like that. So it's part of it. Maybe I will also share with us maybe I will share a video resources with us that we can watch. It can still give us more understanding about everything I have shared. So let me take our questions. If there is anything I've talked about that we need clarity about, or anything you want me to lay more emphasis on.
Thank you very much. My question is, there's a popular saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Does this apply in
Okay.
design? Because something that appeals to someone may not appeal to another person. And then, is there any generally acceptable beauty, as it were, that regardless of what your taste is, it will appeal to everybody?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that is true. Okay, thank you, sir. So you are right. The way people interpret designs are not the same. In fact, when I started working for people, when I started creating designs for people, the first challenge I had was that Many people don't have design sense. Like they don't even know. They don't know what is a good design and what is a bad design. Many people don't understand that. So I've seen people celebrating very bad design and they will see it like it's a good design. That
Mm,
thing used to give me a lot of issues. But I've come to understand that even though your client, yes, your client might not come to the understanding of what a good design is, still give them a good design. Why? You are not doing it only for your client. You are also doing it for people that your client will use that design, that we use that design to communicate to. One thing is there is always a standard for everything. There is what we call standardization. So I believe that stay with the standard, stay with the principle, and make sure you are doing what is right. If the beholder is not appreciating it, that is because the beholder does not come to appreciate it. But yet, the beholder will know that nothing is wrong with it because standard is always standard. So they might not fully appreciate what you have done, but at least they will see that they can communicate. One thing about graphic design is, can we pass the message? That's the essence of graphic design. It is different from artwork. Artwork, you can do something very abstract. Nobody understands it, but it's a nice artwork. I've seen many artwork like that, very abstract. You begin to wonder, why is this thing this expensive? Why is it 1 million naira? But that's why it is called artwork. But it is not true in graphic design. In graphic design, your message must be well communicated. So, in as much you can do justice to that, you can communicate your message perfectly and you can communicate it to the audience in the right way. And you are still within the standard of operation, the standard of design principles, then you are good to go. So, there could be diversity, yes, and differences, that is sure, but within the acceptable standard. Yes, that is just it. So you can diversify. There are people that everybody has their own unique way of designing. That's just one thing about it. I have a colleague at work. The way he designs is different from the way I design. When I design, the way I think is not the same way he thinks. So our thinking
mm,
pattern is not the same, and that is normal for everybody. So the way we approach things are not the same. But yet we all we both work with a standard. In fact, it was when I started working for some big brands that I come to understand that designing for big brands is the easiest thing to do in life. Like it is when I was designing for all these poor brands that designing was very difficult. But for big brands, they have what we call brand guidelines. So you just follow their brand guidelines and you give them their designs. With that, your life is simple. The design is simple. You can just create a design, and the only thing you will do is background and logo. Just put logo
mm.
in a background, and that is good for them. But you see these local people that doesn't know what design is, that doesn't understand branding, that doesn't understand repetition, that doesn't understand principles of design. They are the one that gives designers problems a lot, and they are the one that pays low amount of money. But the people that pays more, they they have people that have knowledge working for them. So they have when you are creating a design for organization that have people that have doctorate in design. So those ones they understand things, and that is what someone should be aiming for. So I think I have answered that question. Let's just stay with the standard and let the beholder decide on what they want.
I won't blame the builder too much because today I'm also just learning about balance. Only God knows how many times I've done something that is not balanced.
Yeah, I think you're right because it's possible.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, from my side, also I can hear you.
Ife, I can't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me.
No, I can't hear my husband. Sorry, if it's a
Okay. If I to pay with you.
If we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, my network. Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is that birthday card. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm thinking the font for birthday. It
Okay.
looks somehow to me. Maybe it's part of the design. I find it difficult to read it, except if I already have an idea that it's birthday. Is there any reason why you use it?
Okay. So I actually use that font just to communicate something like celebration. So it's a kind of font we call script. So it's grouped
Okay.
under script font. So script fonts are difficult to read. That's why they are called scripts.
Okay.
You show it to, and in fact, what you have just displayed to me now is that you're an adult. So basically,
I don't want
so
to play.
when you are designing for adults, you have to be very careful of fonts we call script font by the teenagers organization to celebrate the pastor. So it is the
Okay.
teenagers. The teenagers are celebrating their pastor, so they have to. You have to
Okay.
bring an element of teenagers.
Okay.
So
But
why don't I have
I-
problem with it? Am I still a teenager?
Because you are in a different generation now.
Gen Z.
I know women like all these colly things. Women
Yeah.
they just like all these colly.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, any other question?
Okay. Yeah. That's it for me.
Oh, I think
Oh.
that's it for me too. Thank you. Thank you for showing us how to live a balanced life. We've not been balanced in this presentation of this far. At least if that's what I would take away, I will learn how to
Okay,
achieve more
thank
balance.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much. So we will continue. I'm going to share the recording at the end. I will still have to. I know I will do a lot of work on the recording because of the pause and play. So I will work on the recording, perfect everything together. Then I will share it with us so that we can watch it. So we will meet this week. We are meeting today and Friday, but from next week it will be Monday and Wednesday. Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much for
much
your
for your
time.
time.
Appreciate.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to
Okay.
learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do have a beautiful night rest.
And you
You
too. Yeah.
and that's
Bye.
bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.